Okay, let's get things going here. Welcome, everyone. My name is David Kennedy. I'm the Executive Director of the Greater Patchogue Chamber of Commerce, and certainly arts and music has been essential to placemaking for us in Patchogue, and I'll certainly be talking about that as we move forward. Just first, I just want to take this opportunity to really give a shout out to Vision Long Island for putting this amazing seminar together. Eric Alexander and Dwan Weber and everybody associated. It's just great for us to collaborate and discuss ideas, what works, what doesn't work. So I just want to, just really thank Vision Long Island for making it happen. I do want to just update you. You see a list of panelists that are going to be, were supposed to be here. One I know couldn't make it. Unfortunately, Dave Saul had a death in his family that prevented him from being with us today, so we certainly sent out our condolences to him and his family. Margarita Espada, I'm not sure. I don't see her here, so I'm assuming she didn't make it today, and we just wish her well. So anyway, again, thank you. As I said, my name is David. I'm from the Greater Patchogue Chamber of Commerce. And I'll just kind of go through. It's interesting they asked me to moderate this panel. I am not an artist. I barely can go beyond a stick figure. I can't play an instrument, but I certainly appreciate the arts. And certainly through my position, I see how important the arts is in building a community. And first and foremost, let's start with the Patchogue Theater. Before I was the executive director, I happened to be on the village board in the village of Patchogue from '96 to 2000. And we were the village board that bought this abandoned movie theater that was a performing arts center, a vaudeville performing arts center back in the 20s that come the 30s and 40s became a movie house, then became a triplex, and then by the mid-'80s had closed and was vacant for a good 12 or maybe 15 years. There's no question that the decline of Patchogue kind of began when that theater closed. And the rise of Patchogue began when it was restored and it was turned into the performing arts center it is today. Before Patchogue Theater, maybe 3 restaurants on Main Street. After Patchogue Theater, I've lost count. I think it's got to be about 30 within walking distance of the theater.
How long ago was that?
96 or 97 is when we started the renovations. The first performance was 1998. December 17th of 1998 was our first performance there. So there's no, you could there's a direct correlation to the number of restaurants and the fact that theater is bringing thousands of people. So that was number one. To starting the arts in Patchogue. Next was the Arts Council. Patchogue Arts Council started in the early aughts just really put a new sensibility. Patchogue always has been a very culturally diverse community, and certainly artistic spirit has always been there, but was never organized. It was never cohesive. A group of local people got together, made it cohesive, and now Beth Giacomo, who's our executive director, she used to work with Islip Arts, she's really taken it to the next level of the shows that they do. And then because of the Arts Council, Patchogue right now is the only community on Long Island that is the host for an artist residential community known as ArtSpace. ArtSpace is an organization that's based in Minneapolis, and they throughout the country create these residential spaces that provide loft, and working spaces with residential. The mayor fought hard to get it. When they first were looking on Long Island, there were other communities that they were looking to go to, but Mayor Pontieri did his job to really bring them to the community and make them take a second look in Patchogue. And not only did they bring a beautiful building, and they're bringing these great residents right to our downtown area, and the spirit that they've created has been amazing. And now there's galleries, and all our businesses now features galleries. And there's not a restaurant in town that doesn't feature music on the weekends. So the art has just been so essential to just creating what I like to say, when you have a great art community, it just creates an identity of the town. It makes you unique from other communities when you have an active art association. So for some of the people that could speak better about that, I'm going to turn it over to our panelists to give them a few minutes to introduce themselves, what they do, and some of their experiences in their local downtowns as well. So we'll move over to you.
Thank you. My name is Julie Lyon. I am the president of the board of directors of Westbury Arts. We are an arts council. We are a 501c3 nonprofit operating in Westbury. We are committed to attracting, developing, and promoting art and culture throughout the community by offering programs that connect, educate, and inspire. Our vision is a community where arts and culture are valued and instill a sense of belonging and pride, defining Westbury as an ideal cultural destination on Long Island. Our motto is, "Together we create Westbury." So to give you a little bit of our history, it's interesting because our history directly parallels what David was just saying about Patchogue. Westbury Arts was started in 2013. We were called the Greater Westbury Council for the Arts, and we were created to support Westbury's work of downtown revitalization and to build on the energy created by the opening of the space at Westbury Theater. Now, if you don't know the space at Westbury Theater, it's exactly what he described. It was a vaudeville theater back in the 20s. It was a movie theater, I think in the 50s, 60s. It was a triplex, I think in the 70s, like a dollar theater. And then in the 80s sometime it closed. When I moved to Westbury in 2009, it had been closed for probably 25 or 30 years. There was a giant hole in the roof where the rain and the snow came in, and it was an eyesore, and we didn't know what was going to happen with it. So in 2013, a businessman bought the building, decided to renovate it, and turn it into the space at Westbury Theater, and now we're enjoying concerts and live performances. It's also like a catering venues. You can have your wedding there, you can have your bar mitzvah there, you can have your corporate event there. So it's a big, Westbury Arts was created to kind of catch the tailwind of that energy that happened with the theater opening. So I like hearing your story because it makes me think that I can see where we might be in 20 or 25 years. So that's why I was asking you how long ago you started, because we're still very young. We've only been in existence for 5 years. We got our 501c3 status in 2014. Since our inception, we've been 4-time recipients of the New York State Council on the Arts Decentralization Grant. We just got it for 2019, so we're very proud of that. We got the 2016 Smart Growth Award from Vision Long Island for placemaking. We've seen a 500% increase in donations, a 70% increase in membership, and a 65% increase in attendance at our summer concerts. So that seems like a lot of growth for an organization like ours, and we owe that to a number of things. Partly a really extremely engaged board of directors, a really extremely engaged core member of volunteers, and really good digital infrastructure. So I know from going to other arts councils on Long Island and being a member of an arts council symposium that digital infrastructure is not something that comes naturally to artists and to art organizations. But I think because we're a young organization that we only started in 2013, we started in the digital age, as opposed to an older organization that started in the pre-digital age and then has to try to upgrade, which is always more difficult. So we are an all-volunteer organization. We are a business run by volunteers. We're also virtual. We do not have brick and mortar. So we conduct all of our, we don't have brick and mortar yet. So Gail's reminding me, I have my Westbury people sitting right there. So I have my cheering, my fan club. And I'm sure that Patty L. Hayek, my vice president, is back there too, and I'm sure she'll chime in if I forget something really important. Please do. Anyway, so we do present all of our programs and events in shared spaces, the community center, the recreation center, the piazza. We also occasionally hold meetings in people's homes, in the library, wherever we need to. And we communicate with each other and with our members primarily digitally. We have a website, we're on Google, we do all of our business on the Google Drive and on the Google platform. We Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. email and then, snail mail when we have to, because it's expensive. So the type of events that we present, we have a free summer arts and concert series that we've been doing for 5 years now. Before we took it on, it was done by I think the Business Improvement District might have done it, or the Village of Westbury, I'm not really sure. Anyway, so that's been actually growing every year. We've had better attendance this year than we ever have before. I think we're up to like 250 or more people per concert. The piazza's pretty small, so that's almost like max capacity for us. We do pop-up galleries. We have juried art exhibits. We have created a summer fine arts camp for children in conjunction with the Village of Westbury Recreation Department that we're very proud of. We also have an art contest that we hold with Westbury Middle School, where we take a group of middle school students to New York City to see a museum, to see a show, to have lunch. And for some of them, it's the first time that they've ever been out of Long Island and gotten a chance to go to the city or to go to a museum or to go see a show. So it's a very big deal for them. And in 2019, we have a fairly full schedule of events happening. We've created a program that we're calling Out of Many One, and that is a series of themed art events to coincide with the celebrations of Black History Month, Women's History Month, LGBTQ Pride Month, and Hispanic Heritage Month. We're once again going to have our summer concert series. That'll be our 6th. We hold a short film concert every year, which is a lot of fun with Asbury Shorts. We're doing Art on the Block, which is an art festival. We're doing Artists at Work, which is a pop-up painting and performance event that's going to happen throughout the summer at various venues at various times, just kind of like impromptu performances and live painting, which will be fun. But most importantly of all, in 2019, we'll probably be moving into our new home. So, to give you the background, in 2016, if you went to the morning session, you might have heard that the Village of Westbury was the first village to be awarded Governor Cuomo's $10 million downtown revitalization grant. And the Village of Westbury has decided to allocate a substantial portion of that money to a building that's going to be dedicated to our use for Westbury Arts. So at this point in our development, the building's been purchased. They're selecting an architect, and we'll be looking at starting the design process very soon. So this new building will bring Westbury Arts to clearly a very new level and significantly increase our ability to fulfill our mission. In anticipation of this major change in how we do business, we are engaging our board of directors in a series of strategic planning exercises to clarify our mission, focus our vision, and evaluate what we bring to our community so that what we offer to the residents of Westbury connects, educates, and inspires. So this breakout session is a little bit about placemaking, and placemaking is defined as a multifaceted approach to the planning, design, and management of public spaces, capitalizing on a local community's assets, inspiration, and potential with the intention of creating public spaces that promote people's health, happiness, and well-being. Westbury Arts believes strongly that art programs are an essential part of life and bring a community together in ways that no other program can. This is why we do what we do. Together, we create Westbury.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Regina Gill. Regina?
First of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
For those of you who don't, can you hear me back there? Oh, that's great.
I apologize, you're on the mic.
Typically, people cannot hear me over dinner, so I'll do my very best to reach you back there. First of all, congratulations. For those of you who don't know, it's a tremendous achievement to recognize that the arts can be facilitators for a revitalized and a restored downtown, for community to come together, for social services, for all kinds of benefits that the typical person who hears, oh, arts, that's nice, doesn't really get. So that's first of all. I come at this from another place. We are the Gold Coast Art Center, and we are also the Gold Coast International Film Festival, which at this point makes us reach from Great Neck, Manhasset, Port Washington, Roslyn. We are partners with Hofstra University, which I'll explain in a little bit. We also partner with the Cinema Arts in Huntington, and we have partnered with Westbury High School to present workshops and benefits for professional training and development for their teachers, demonstrating how the arts can integrate into regular classroom curriculum, and how kids who will not learn just from a book or just from a blackboard can learn math through movement, can learn social studies through music, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm speaking as the founder. So as the founder, it was my background that led me to grieve when the only community arts center that had existed in Great Neck, which is where I moved in 1976, closed its doors. It had been there since 1956. And of course I moved in 1976, and by 1979 they decided to take advantage of a good price on real estate, and they sold and they moved. So, and they didn't just move, they closed. I went to our, at that time, assemblyman, and this is where government comes in, who was Tom DiNapoli. Tom DiNapoli today, of course, is our New York State Controller. Tom got it, he understood, and I was surprised because I was coming to him as a private citizen with, I'm a professional artist by training. I grew up in the city of New York and went to the High School of Music and Art, which was, many of you might know it, a premier destination for aspiring artists, musicians, dancers, and so on. Moving from New York City to Long Island, I was attracted by the North Shore Community Arts Center, which had been there for so long. And first thing I did when I moved there with little children was I marched right in and volunteered and said, this is great, this is why I'm here. So you can imagine my distress when they closed. And then came the process of, okay, what do we do now? In the meantime, there was a big change in people's perceptions of the arts. I don't know if you're aware of it, many of you are young, but in my experience growing up in New York, every single day in school, there were the arts. I learned about Aaron Copland, classical music, jazz, you name it. It was all taught, and it was part of our daily curriculum. We learned dance, from ballroom dancing to square dancing. We learned it in gymnasium. That was part of our physical education. So it was always integrated into your daily structure. The post-World War II generation, and I'm not that, but I'm certainly aware of it because I was raised by them, they had it in spades. So it's not a coincidence that when you go to Carnegie Hall or to Lincoln Center, there's a lot of snow on the roof, because that's the generation that supports the classical arts. And what do we do? And I know the directors, and I know that they're genuinely concerned about what the future of the arts is going to be when that generation goes to the great concert hall in the sky. So one of the things that we did once I gathered my thoughts, and Tom DiNapoli came back from Albany with a check for, I think it was a check for $10,000 in 1989. And I said, what's this? He said, well, you wrote up a great proposal, and I think this is your seed money, make it happen. I had no business background and a lot of friends. So what started to happen was, it was about government, so going to the local mayors, going to the local people who administrate to understand how communities work. Great Neck is one of those very difficult communities because there are on one peninsula 8 mayors, 8 boards of trustees, 8 villages that make up what is known as Great Neck. There is no one Great Neck. So therefore, hat in hand, you have to learn how to be a public speaker, and you have to learn how to ask for money without going, and you have to learn to make your case. And people would say, what do we need the arts for? What do we need an art center for? What's the big deal? So that's the first question you have to ask, and that's the first question you have to answer. And I've been answering it ever since. So this has been going on now since we opened our doors in 1995. We are a 501c3 multi-art center, so that's art, music, dance, theater, and film under one roof. And hello. And I did my homework. I went up to Westchester and I researched the Helen Hayes Theater to find out how did they get to where they got. And down to Virginia to the Torpedo Factory. If you've never been there, it's a very cool place. They took an old torpedo factory, again, government in partnership with arts. And to the Cinema Arts in Huntington to ask, how did you get your film program off the ground? And the late Vic Skolnick, who with his wife Charlotte Skye was a founder, was very generous with his time and explained and told me, gee, I envy you your audience. It's a sophisticated audience. I said, great, I have to get it first. So Gold Coast has a cultural legacy, the whole Gold Coast, which is why it's not a coincidence that it had a reputation which for a long time was undeserved in terms of current activity. It had a reputation for being top drawer in terms of attracting people who value the arts and attracting people who are practitioners of the arts. So Charlie Chaplin lived there in the 1920s with his then wife Paulette Goddard. He lived in Great Neck. F. Scott Fitzgerald wrote The Great Gatsby in Great Neck. We had Sid Caesar, Martha Ray. You can go down the list of all the people who lived down there, Joan Crawford. So you had the house that Oscar Hammerstein II lived in, and he sold it to Alan King, the actor, the comedian. You had that kind of interaction, and it went up the coast, Port Washington, Sands Point, and beyond to Westbury. So what do you do when you have a cultural legacy like that? Great Neck itself, Louise Nevelson taught there. She was teaching painting there, and one of her beautiful installations is at Temple Bethel on Middle Neck Road, the main drag. So in 1989, with that money, I asked friends to help prepare, how do you prepare a business plan? How do you prepare a site plan for the Imaginary Art Center that we thought we would require? I'm happy to tell you that the mayor took me by the, not literally, but took me by the hand and said, let's go look at available spaces. And you had the business community stepping up, and we had empty stores. We had about 40 or 50 empty stores all along Middle Neck Road in the 1980s. Went to the school district. I had gotten my master's in arts education, went and spoke to the superintendent and to the teachers and to the chair. And we ended up using those empty storefronts as showcases for the art of the students in the schools with their teachers. And the town picked up the tab for easels. And we got involved with the chamber so that they would give us the keys to those empty stores. There are creative ways in which you can actually make a community step up. And after a while, I was that pest, and along the way picked up a lot of other pests. And we are very happy to tell you that we opened our doors in 1995 in the basement of St. Paul's Church because they had a dance, they already had a dance studio. We had a 5-year plan. How many of you know about 5-year plans? Happy to tell you we outgrew our 5-year plan within 2 years. And in 1997, met with a real estate owner, a developer, who lived in Manhattan, had zero to do. This was just one of his 1 million square feet of real estate holdings. And he had bought this building where Charlie Chaplin had started United Artists. And then when they decided that shooting films in inclement weather, which is a lot of our year, wasn't really helpful, they moved it to Hollywood. But we actually exist, and I always think of this as an aura, in Charlie Chaplin's office. We're there. And as a result, he said to me, I did my pitch, the mayor took me, he said, we gotta meet with this guy in the city. If you can convince him that this is good, maybe he'll let you live there. And he gave us 5,000 square feet of space for the same rent we were paying at the church as a philanthropic. Turns out this guy was the guy who gave all the money for Lincoln Center Jazz. So he totally believed in the arts. It was just a lucky break. And luck has a lot to do with everything.
Yeah,
So, but you
true.
can, it's true. And you can make your own luck sometimes.
And
But-
persistence.
Yeah. Persistence does pay.
Yes.
But you have to also have passion, the other P word. You have to have passion. You have to believe so much in what you're promoting that you get past people's objections, and you get to the success that you're looking for. The mayor made me the Commissioner of Cultural Affairs. He never had a Commission of Cultural Affairs, but he created one because he felt that it was important if I was going to have anybody's going to listen to me, they might listen more to somebody who had political status than somebody who didn't. So now there's a Commission for Cultural Affairs. There had been a Nassau County Commission for Cultural Affairs in Nassau County. They folded that into excuse me, the park system, which is unfortunate for a lot of reasons. For those of you who don't think about it, if you've just folded out the arts into the parks and recreation, then you've just demoted us from a significant entity to entertainment. And we're not just about entertainment. In 1996, I wrote a grant. At that point, we had staff, we had art teachers, music teachers, everybody. Wrote a grant, had a great board that was assembled of people who cared, including the mayor. And wrote a grant and was accepted as an affiliate of the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C., where we go every year. We send, now it's not me, now there's other people to do this, and they go down to D.C., and we are met by people from every state in the United States in the world of arts education. We're addressed by the most significant people in the area of education and the arts, and we participate in workshops that teach us, and then we go back and teach our teachers. And that's not just our teachers at the Art Center, but our teachers in all the other districts, both on Long Island and now in Queens, where we teach the teachers how to, in their classroom, how to use the arts to reach those kids that they're having trouble reaching, not just to wait the once a month to go to the art department. And it's been very, very successful. We have lots of partners, including Hofstra, Plainview, Bethpage schools, Babylon schools. We have partnered with all kinds of school districts, and we continue to have satellite school districts partner with us. In 2011, we opened up the first edition of the Gold Coast International Film Festival. Have any of you participated? Because I hope you have, and I hope you've seen our stuff. But this was at the request of then County Executive Tom Swazi, who was looking for something that would attract visitors, business, residents, young people, something like that. And I looked, I was approached by Judy Bosworth, who was then our Nassau County legislator, and she said, can you come up with anything? And I said, as a matter of fact. So coming right out of our film series, we came up with the idea of a film festival that would be reasonable. Tickets are not more than a ticket would cost you elsewhere. Followed by conversation with somebody in the film industry or from the film itself. We had Bruce Dern come to our very first film festival. We just had Robert Wagner come and be honored by us. And in between, we had Ed Burns, who, just so you know, those of you who are Ed Burns fans, Ed Burns is the only actor I've ever met who took 300 selfies with the audience. So you learn about, we had Paul Sorvino, Susie Essman, I mean, lots and lots of interesting people. So what's happened is that the film festival has now become our new ID, and our school, which is so successful and has so many of its own kudos, people are much more interested in the marketing part of the film festival than they are in the marketing part of school. School? Oh, that's nice. Oh, film festival, that's great. We have an art gallery. We've had some amazing artists, and we've had some regional and local artists who also do a great deal to promote. And we created summer arts and vacation arts. Vacation arts, when schools are closed, not everybody goes to Florida. So what we do is we are open, and we have kids who have drop-in program. They can come in every day, or they can come in just for the day, from beginning to end. And whatever the age is, we've got something for them. In terms of other things, we have the support of the school district for this, because they know that they have kids who are looking for a plan. They have working parents who are looking for a place to go. So, having said that, I want to tell you that our website is goldcoastarts.org. Feel free to jump on and learn more about us, and I thank you for the opportunity to share what we do.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You know, I hear this, what theme I get is that, you know, there's such a rich history of arts on Long Island that is so lost in the shuffle. I think to a lot of people, Long Island's like a wasteland when it comes to arts and culture, and yet not only is it thriving now, it's been thriving for so many years, and we've been a backbone for it, and it's nice that, people are becoming more aware of that. But go ahead, I'm sorry.
One last thing. The arts and social services. I don't think people understand. We have a program called Making Memories.
Mm-hmm.
Making Memories addresses the needs of Alzheimer's patients, and what we do is we have them and their caregivers come to the art center where we've prepared lunch, and we've prepared either a film from the 1930s or music from their experience, and or dance, whatever it takes. I have to tell you that we have had the most moving and poignant experiences. A wife who said, my husband just asked me to dance. He hasn't spoken in 2 years. So there are other applications that I think people don't think about. Sorry.
No problem. Thank you. And I have some list of questions too, but I really, I know you're here and you came here for a reason, so I really want to turn this over to you guys and with any questions that you have, and right here in the front row, and then we'll get to you next, sir.
I want to thank you for coming and presenting. I appreciate the fact that you define placemaking, because I think that's kind of a term that is not very well known if you're not in the industry. Yeah. My background is landscape architecture, so it's kind of embedded in my education, but it's not something that is very well known. What I would like to add to that definition, and I wish that maybe I didn't hear it, that diversity and sustainability should be a part of placemaking to engage your community. And with that said, how are you engaging? I did hear you say the LGBT. I always mess up the
LGBT
community and other communities. How are you reaching out to them to get them to get to your centers? Also, senior citizens. I love that you said the arts is not just entertainment. I grew up with art, but I also think and find it to be therapeutic, and so important for senior citizens and our youngsters and everyone in between to engage in something like this in order to develop a healthy
Society.
society, exactly. So how are you reaching to a diverse group?
Well, one of the things coming up this year, we are presenting the program that I talked about called Out of Many One. You're not familiar, it's on every dollar bill, e pluribus unum. That's what that means, out of many one. And it's kind of the definition of who we are, in the United States, is that we're a lot of different cultures that have come together, and we are like that in Westbury too, is that we're a very diverse community. And so we wanted to create a series of cultural celebrations that involve music, dance, art, storytelling, and bring people together through art. Because one of the things that we believe more than anything is that art has the ability to bring together people from diverse communities for a common good. So two people who might not otherwise speak to each other or get to know each other or have anything to do with each other because they just don't travel in the same circles can meet and communicate because art is the focus. And so that's one of the things that we're doing. But the other things, the things that we've been doing, we've been made sure that our concert series is very diverse. We offer a very wide range of different types of music so that it's not just a bunch of wedding bands playing in the piazza every week, right? Because our community is largely Hispanic. And I see when we have concerts, people standing around the edges, but they're not coming in, and it's largely our Hispanic community standing around the edges, and I want to bring them in. So we have specifically engaged bands who play, Spanish music. We had a mariachi band last year that was like literally our biggest crowd of the whole season because we engaged those people and they wanted to come out and hear it. And it was really fun because while the mariachi band was playing, he stopped And he just started calling out countries, who's from Mexico, who's from El Salvador, who's from Peru, who's from Ecuador, and we had people from every Spanish-speaking country in the world. So that was really fun to see that we had like not just people from Central America, not just people from South America, but people from like everywhere, and they were all there at that concert listening to that music. So even though I might have thought that mariachi music was only going to appeal to the Mexican American population, he made it appeal to everybody, which was really cool. So we do try to do that. We try to have bands that are a little bit of everything so that we can try to engage our Black community, our Hispanic community, our white community, and everybody else. So that, and we try to do that with our arts programs too.
And when, I know several concerts, you also include dance. You had salsa lessons, tango lessons.
Yeah.
So it really engaged people who might not normally interact with each other. Everybody's loving the music, dancing, young, old.
Yeah, we found that people like dancing more than anything.
yeah.
So when you,
Yeah.
you incorporate dance into the concert series, it's like everybody's up on their feet. It's a lot of fun.
But how did you get them there? Like, did you reach out to their churches, or like, how did you advertise to get them? Because I'm Salvadorian, and just my parents, you know, they didn't grow up with, and they don't have knowledge of the internet. Like, they don't surf the web to research the stuff. They don't look at the
Patty's raising her hand.
newspapers.
Do you want to answer that question?
That's a challenge we have. So, and as Colombian American myself, what we've decided is that to make a more conscious effort to have all of our flyers and written promotions in Spanish and in English, as well as online, but also a lot of word of mouth. Especially, I found personally that the summer camp this summer really got our name out there to a lot of different communities that didn't know about us before. I also do, like all individual artists as well, when I was doing a jewelry class at the senior center, I found people who did not speak English taking my class, and now they know about the Arts Council. So it's a lot of grassroots, I think, that's really important.
Through the library.
The library as well, but obviously it has to be in the language that they speak, and also they have to hear their voice, right? Another great thing was Jeanette Berry, also bringing people who actually live in the community and are from the community to perform in the piazza was amazing, because you see yourself performing, you see the girl that grew up in your neighborhood, so it's great. So we made really an effort, a conscious effort to keep doing that.
And I find the reverse for Lisa and Patrick. I find that the arts has been the comfortable place that they feel to engage with the community. We have a great organization, Patchogue for Projecting Arts, which is a great Hispanic arts organization.
Oh, yeah.
And they really, came to us even before we even got a chance to reach out to them. And it's providing that safe place. So, it's kind of, when you have that active arts, it creates a safe space that they do feel and they engage on us. But I want you to...
Well, I can tell you that our population is a little broader in terms of, especially for the festival, but in terms of what we discovered, Great Neck especially, and the North Shore especially, had an influx of Iranians. So this is probably the only place on the planet where Iranians, Syrians, Iraqis, Moroccans, Tunisians, Filipinos, Russians, we had, and Asians, tremendous population on the south side. That entire part of town got great golfers because they love their golf. But the truth of the matter is, in terms of the arts, it was a very tough population to get engaged with us. So we did the following. The Iranians came here after the Shah fell. They came here in droves. They settled on Long Island and they settled in LA. LA doesn't matter to me, but they do. And they were very exclusive, and there was a lot of friction. The Asians did the same. We had, and there are more and more. It's not just Chinese. It's Chinese, Korean, some Japanese. And the Kennedy Center taught us to create workshops through the schools. So we created one that was for the teachers who didn't really know how to deal with their students. We created one called Breaking Down the Great Wall of China. So we had a day for the teachers of music, art, food. We brought in food, Chinese food, and we had members of the community who knew where to get authentic this and that. And at the end of the day, they all sang Twinkle Twinkle in Chinese, felt really good about it. But the truth is, they went home that day, these teachers, and they went into their departments, and now they understood why their Chinese students were not responding to them, because it was a completely different, respectful, you don't make eye contact with a teacher, for example, if you want to be respectful. We did the same thing at the other end of town then, it was the early 90s, with the Iranian community, and we had so many of the women, mostly women, who cooked and prepared, and we had their calligraphy and their art, and this was all part of it. And we had art exhibits from those cultures. Since that time, we now, for example, we have Chinese New Year. We have such a large Asian population, so the Asian, a representative on my board, herself Chinese, came to me and she said, I have a 4-year-old who's in school, 5-year-old who's in school, and the other girls don't want to sit with her. Only the non-Chinese kids want to sit with her, don't want to sit with her. The Chinese kids want to sit with her. So we went to the schools and we said we need to do something, because there's obviously social components that the arts can also address. It's not always easy, but facing it is a good start. So we have a Hispanic population. I have he's the head of the Catholic Church in our community, and the churches and temples have been a tremendous resource as well. They guided me and they said, well, if you want to reach this population, they have a newsletter that goes out to all of in their own language. Hooray! So we now, when we have certain things that we think will be interesting to them, we send it out that way. We pay for ads in, for example, in the only Farsi written newsletter that they've got, so forth and so on. So yes, I believe that the arts are a uniting force when you allow them to be, that we don't just have to splinter it up and cater to different, because I can tell you, a young Chinese couple came to our film festival, and he's a physical therapist and his wife is very pregnant, and they live in Flushing, but he works in Great Neck and in Manhasset, and came to a film that we were showing because it was the only time and date that was convenient for them. What was the film? It was in German, and it was about the Holocaust. And when it was over, he came over to me and he said, I have to thank you. This was the most moving film. We had no idea. We didn't understand anything about that period of time. It's not part of our culture. But in seeing that all the way home, we talked about maybe we should learn more about our own Chinese history, because we don't know anything about that either. So there are applications way beyond the tribalization of our community. Our idea is community is about a whole, right? So we try to do whatever we can.
Excellent. And it's funny, we did a summer festival, E Pluribus Unum, all just, so it's funny.
Oh,
Again,
yeah.
West Bear and Patchogue are mirroring each other very well
This is
here.
going to have the next one.
Yes, sir.
Hi there. For the younger generation, I know previously coming from a school where the demographics, it was largely diverse, but it had more of a Caucasian population. I was very involved in the drum program there and the chorus program there, and it was always thriving. We performed in many different places. But then moving to, staying in the town of Babylon, moving to Amityville, which the demographics are, it's more leaning toward the Hispanic and African American side. I see the drama department isn't as thriving, the chorus department is thriving, and a lot of the younger generation in those communities that have a largely Black or Hispanic population, and especially in North Babylon, we had drama as a class, as an elective that you could take, and a lot of people joined and noticed their love for the theater arts. Here in Amityville, the chorus part is dying. We only have like 20 kids compared to 120 in North Bab. We don't have a drama department, and the drama club there is not as thriving as other places. What are you guys doing to help spread, like, for the younger generation who might not think of the fine arts as somewhat cool or whatever? What do you think? Are you guys doing to help those the demographics towards more African American and more Hispanic, help it thrive more, like to spread it and to let them know that they can be heard, especially if they have a passion for it?
Okay, I can take this one, I think. Couple of things. One of the things is through our outreach program, because our school located where it is, we have 10,000 square feet and we have a lot of studios, but it's not always easy for students to come to us. So, not, at least not for their parents and so on. So what we've done is we've created the outreach program where we go to them. And what, in certain school districts, and I'm not sure the particulars, but we discovered that they have had their surprise, the budget's been cut. And sometimes it's been cut to almost zero. Every year when we go to the conference in Washington, they announce that 10% of all arts groups, and that includes dance, music, you name it, multi-arts, all of 10% in the United States have been cut in 1 year. Now, that's eliminated, that's never coming back. And as a result, you're looking at, it translates into about 100,000 different arts groups in the country. And that was very alarming to them. So they suggested that we go, we create and get funding. Now that's the tricky part, is to get the funding. So we applied to the federal government at the time when there were still earmarks. We missed those earmarks. And we got a tremendous grant that allowed us for the next 10 years to go into districts all over Long Island, and we brought literally art, music, theater, clay. We have a very, very ambitious clay teacher who brought pounds and pounds and pounds of clay and then dragged them back to the kiln at the art center, fired them, and then brought them back. So, so yes, we were able to do that. That funding ran out. So we had a while where we applied to banks. Banks are a great resource also, except that the bank that we had gotten some serious money from changed their giving profile. So instead of education and the arts, which, by the way, we're talking about $190,000 a year, and $90,000 of that gave us money for buses. So we were able to bus kids in to get free education after school at our facility. They said, okay, corporate, I love that. Corporate has changed our giving profile, so now, and very piously said, so now we're giving only to those organizations that work with the hungry. I said, well, what am I going to say to that? Don't feed the hungry. So as a result, I looked at him, he looked at me, I said, you know that you can write checks until your pen runs dry, and this is not about either or, but you've made it either or. So we had to cut back again. So it becomes really difficult to find private individuals nobody's giving us that kind of money, because the first order of business is you have to make them understand. With that money, we can do good in the community beyond just what the arts implies. We can do what you're saying. We can help. We have a teacher, and I'll just, sorry. Sure. We have a teacher. His name is Lance Theobald. Lance came to me in 1997. He had been a football player. And Lance Theobald looked like a football player. He was a big guy. He came out of the minority community. He was very, very interesting to talk to, because why? When he played professional football, eventually he ended up in Europe for some kind of exhibition game, and he was injured. And in his therapy, they gave him dance therapy, because they said, you're too muscle bound, you need to be more flexible. So in studying dance with whoever this brilliant dance therapist was, he decided he really loves dance. So when he came back to the States, he gave up football. His body changed, and it really did. I mean, he's an amazing, he became a professional dancer and came to me and said, I'd like to teach now. I said, what do you want to teach? He said, well, I could teach tap, and I can teach hip hop, and I can teach modern dance. I said, you're it. And he had never taught before. So suddenly Lance is attracting populations of kids, every kind of kid you can imagine, mostly girls, and then later on boys who wanted to study dance. And he's a success story. He's now teaches for me maybe once a month, because he's got his own, he has danced at the Metropolitan Opera. He's a tremendous success story. So we believe in that. Yes, there are ways, and it's through funding. That's the
Did you
real
want to
F
add
word.
anything, or?
I don't really have anything to add. Yes, funding is a big deal.
Yeah, word.
I feel like Westbury Arts, while we want to be working more with schools, and we are like inching our way toward that, we're very young. We have a very tiny little budget, and we're all volunteers, so there's only so many projects that we can take on. We are starting an educational program with elementary school kids this year. We are doing our summer camp, and I hope that once we're in our building, I hope that we can have an after-school program for high school kids where they can come and have a creative space.
Excellent. Yes.
Hi, I've been to all three of your venues and I feel like hugging all three of you. I really do, because first of all, it's fantastic
We love
having
you too.
places look.
Okay,
Second of all, I'm a
further question.
retired special education teacher,
Ah.
and my first master's degree was in music therapy. And my school that I worked in happened to be partnered with Carnegie Hall and other places, so we were one of the very few schools, we still are one of the very few city schools with an enormous music program. But I do know also about the Alzheimer's and all that. But I have to say, last year when you had that Dare to Be Different documentary with WLIR, sorry, I was in my 20s, in the 80s, and
Spoke
that,
to you.
and my gosh, that radio station was only around, 7 years? That was like seeing old friends again. You had the DJs afterwards doing the panel discussion, Dennis McNamara, the producer of the program, my gosh, it was just fantastic. So I have to thank you.
Thank you.
I'm
Thank
gonna
you for
cry.
sharing. I'm gonna cry.
Yes, in the way in the back there.
How are you? Dr. David Friedman. I'm a science research teacher at MacArthur High School. I know you were disappointed to be lumped in with Parks Department. What is your thought about going from STEM to STEAM, the inclusion of arts and music with science, technology, engineering, math? And what have you done in that regard, aside from like the science fair movie that people have started to talk about?
We showed it at our festival.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Okay. So that seems to be like the,
Yeah, just-
Go, yeah,
Go
please
ahead.
do, yeah.
We just got an Alfred P. Sloan Foundation grant, as a matter of fact, that provides for us to show films and other projects throughout the year, where the arts and science, either through film or through some other, so it's a very, to me, it's amazing that it hasn't been STEAM all along. So I'm a big advocate, and through our workshops and so on, we're teaching the teachers how to do just that.
and in terms of funding, I'm sure that's got to be a hope that you start looking into in terms of bringing funds in
For the arts,
for the arts, but putting it as a
actually,
STEAM.
truthfully, if we want funding for our STEAM programs, we go to the engineering companies and the math and the financial companies, because we've had Goldman Sachs come out and do a workshop with us, which they wanted us to host. It was believe it or not, bucket drumming. And they had the kids as captive, yeah, it's very cool. And we had the kids there, so the kids now became their audience for learning about math and investments and how to learn, young kids, and how, not just piggybacks, but learning math through that kind of outlet. So I think STEAM is critical.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think all three, again, of your institutions are incredible. And my question is, I really feel that music and art bring incredible vibrancy to downtowns. And I love when I go to a downtown and just see someone leaning against a building playing a saxophone, or see the kids bucket drumming in the street. And I don't really feel that happens. I don't know how to make that happen in my community. I feel like that is the kind of thing that would really, if you went down to the town dock in Fort Washington and you just saw, rather than going for a performance, but saw this, like, kind of felt like this organic, spontaneous culture. And I was wondering if any of you had any thoughts about that.
You know, we in Patchogue, a Roast Coffee House in Patchogue, did have an open mic night that really became the place for, they couldn't go to the bars, they needed a place. And for the years that they were doing that, I was so disappointed when they stopped it, because outside of Roast for those few years, it was like what maybe Greenwich Village might have been like in the 60s. The kids were outside practicing, sharing, collaborating, and it's a great point. We did do a festival where we did have some, set up busking around the town that was very well received. But I would look, we had it and it kind of fell down. We should bring that back again. It's a great point.
But you in Port Washington, you have someone named Damon Gersh.
Yes, I work very close with him.
Yeah, so that seems to me he's been doing a terrific job. And the town of North Hempstead created, the first time, they created the Arts Advisory Council.
Yes.
I happen to be the chair of that council.
So you think I could reach out to them?
I think that that would be something you should ask him to bring to the council.
Great, great. Because I've seen I was just in Vancouver and they had public pianos on the piazza and people just came up and were playing magnificently. And then all of a sudden there were like crowds of people around them and it just added such vibrancy.
And you know you can do that just by talking to Yamaha. They'll do that and they'll bring the pianos and because they want to sell them, they want to put them out there. So there are creative ways of making that happen.
Okay, I will. Thank you.
We're doing that in Westbury in May.
You are the
Excellent.
pianist.
We're not in the piazza, we're doing it all along Coast Avenue.
That's what
It's
was-
once
that
a
was
week
great.
for the month of
Excellent.
May. You will have an artist painting or a poet
Right.
or a singer or a jazz musician, somebody doing a performance for an hour. It's called Artists at Work. And so we're going to do that. So we're going to do that in May.
Yeah, this is the first year that we're trying
First
that
year we're
program.
doing it.
Yeah, so we're really excited about that because because we want it to be exactly what you said. All of a sudden you have somebody doing something and a little crowd gathers
Yes.
and
social media picks up and.
Right.
Yeah, we have
Yes, so that's what we're
Instagram.
trying to really create that vibe.
My question is, which is a question I had for you in the other one.
Yes.
How do we get the businesses to buy into this? Because there's always a couple, they're like, yeah, we'll do it. And then there's the other ones that just refuse.
Well, that's certainly where persistence, I think, definitely comes in. That was actually one of the questions I wanted to ask them. Luckily, Patchogue, as John Murray, who just walked in, can attest to, they are providing spaces for artists, particularly the restaurants. Are using local artists to decorate their spaces, having gallery openings or shows for local artists. But then again, the local school district for homecoming wanted to paint a lot of store windows for the homecoming parade, and there was a lot of resistance to that, and it was kind of pulling teeth to get people to buy into it. So. It is persistence. Luckily, I find the newer, you're getting a younger crop of store owners coming in, and they embrace it right away. Rose Coffee stopped doing what they did because the young kids weren't buying the coffee. They were hanging out, they weren't buying the coffee, and that, unfortunately, economics always plays a role in it.
Right.
But when they start seeing these galleries fill up these stores, these older store owners are gonna jump in. But I think it's persistence. But I don't know if you have any relationships in that.
Well, yeah, I agree. It's persistence, and I feel like, especially in Westbury, Westbury Arts is pretty young comparatively, compared to Patchogue, compared to what you're doing. So I feel like it really gives me hope for the future to hear you talk about that. And I just feel like it's kind of a long, slow process, and you just have to keep inching along and knocking on doors and talking people into it.
I always feel sorry for the small businesses, I really do, because everybody, from the schools to every charity that you can think of, is always asking them to give them something for free. So, and we know it, and we're very respectful of that. So in order to get the businesses to engage, the first thing that we ask ourselves that every time we ask a potential sponsor is, what are we going to do for you? What do you want? And we listen. So what do they want? We all know what they want. They want people to come in and shop. So we try through our membership program, we try through any special events that we have to engage them, and we don't ask them for money. We ask them for in-kind. And in-kind seems to be okay. So you'll get a glass of wine with dinner if you show your ticket to something. Or you'll get whatever it is that they happen to sell. They're perfectly willing to do that. If they have coupons that they give out for discounts for 10%, they'll give you an extra 5% off for your population. There are ways to do that. But truthfully, the small businessman, I feel so bad for them. They are hurting, especially in the downtowns I've been looking at. So we're trying to support them. We're not actually expecting them to support us beyond showing them that we can help them.
All right, I know we're getting into our lunch hour. We did get a little bit of a late start. I do, if anybody wants to get up, but I don't know if you guys mind maybe taking one more question, and then we'll kind of wrap everything up here. Any other questions out there? Oh, you guys are hungry. Oh, sorry, sir.
I have a short question.
Yes.
Who were the electric dudes? That was one of the reasons I came
You know
here.
what? I mean, that's funny that you mentioned that. I've never met, I only had a conversation just the other day with Dave Saul. I don't know if you were here earlier. He had a death in the family, and that's what prevented him from being here today. He's also very involved in the arts in the village of Farmingdale, which he explained to me too. Other than that they're a band, I've never heard them. I wish I could answer that further.
I Googled them and yeah, they're a rock band. And that's about all I can tell you about the Olympics.
Yeah, and there was another question before we wrap it up?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, sir. Oh, sorry. Apologize.
One more question. I know primarily in Westbury there's the space. Again, pertaining to the younger generation. How many younger acts are you promoting there? Such because I know CK Productions and Ronkonkoma does a lot of stuff for younger people. You have Lisa, obviously, Long Island High School for the Arts in the area. How many younger acts are you putting out there, letting people know that younger people can come to? Because obviously the next generation of people who are going to appreciate the arts is the young generation. So how many?
I look to your local libraries. I know for us in Patchogue, the Patchogue Medford Library is constantly doing young performances, young talent shows, and working with the schools, promote younger artists. People here, know our Alive After 5 festival. That's always been a key component that the library sets up a stage that is strictly just for young performers. So it is out there. 89 North really does, our Patchogue Theater certainly getting bigger name, known acts. 89 North is certainly focusing on some more local bands. But you hit on a good point, and when I was asked to be moderator, I was like, how am I going to fill an hour with this? And there's so many things I still wanted to get into that we even touched on, like in music, and like the battle of cover band versus original music, and how we're trying to change that culture on Long Island, but cover bands are so popular, and it's hard to change.
Tribute band.
Tribute band. I'm sorry, tribute. Using the wrong term there, but there's a place for both of them, but we need to provide more space for young performers, without a doubt.
Yeah, I agree. And specifically, the space at Westbury Theater is a private business, so it doesn't have anything to do with Westbury Arts, so I can't speak to what they're doing. But what we're doing with Westbury Arts is when we vet the bands for our summer concert series, we're always looking for bands that are playing original music, that are local to the community, so that we're supporting our local artists and specifically young bands, if I can find them. But my problem is that a lot of times we have an application for performers, and the people that are applying are my age. So I'm having a hard time reaching people your age to perform at our concert series, and I would love to have some young original bands. It's because they're harder to find. Okay.
Where, this is at a specific location where you have this? Or
Right, our
is it
concert series is in the summer in Westbury. It's at the Piazza Ernesto Strada, which is an open park on the corner of Post Avenue and Maple Avenue in Westbury. So it's an outdoor concert series.
But just at the other side, Patchogue Theater, for a few years there, they did something called Live in the Lobby, and it was strictly local, live, original musicians. And it was one of my favorite nights of the month. They do it once a month. But it stopped because they just weren't getting the crowds to come in, and it is trying to change that culture. I was hoping they wouldn't give it up. It was inside the lobby of the Patchogue Theater. They used the lobby space, which that's one of the key things of our theater, is that they utilize that lobby space a lot to do local performances as well. That obviously can't fill the big house, but still bring some performances into our town. So was there any? I'll give one chance for one more question if there is still any other out there. All right, well, thank you so much. These were excellent questions. Regina, thank you guys for amazing. It was a pleasure. Everybody enjoy the rest of the afternoon. Thank you.